The rain hammered a cracked windshield of Elena Ramirez's 19-year-old Honda like it had a personal grudge. Inside, her 8-year-old son Mateo pressed his forehead to the cold glass, watching the world blur past in streaks of neon and despair. They were on their way home from her second job, cleaning offices after midnight, when the engine coughed its final breath and died on the shoulder of Ocean Boulevard, right in front of the glowing gates of the most expensive dealership in Miami. Elena killed the headlights, sat very still, and did what she always did when everything collapsed. She counted what she had left. $17 in her purse. Half a tank of hope. A little boy who still believed his mother could fix anything. That was when a white and gold Bugatti Chiron rolled up behind them, silent as a shark. Its gull-wing door lifted like a theater curtain, and out stepped Victor Langford, 35, ruthless, beautiful in a way only inherited money can buy. He wore a midnight blue suit that probably cost more than Elena made in a year, and a smile sharp enough to cut glass. He tapped on her window with a platinum ring knuckle. She cracked it an inch. Warm, humid air rushed in, carrying the scent of cologne in the ocean. "Having some trouble?" he asked, voice smooth as the leather he was sitting on moments ago. She didn't answer. She had learned long ago that men like him only spoke to people like her when they wanted an audience for their cruelty. Victor's gaze slid past her to the back seat where Mateo watched with wide, exhausted eyes. Something flickered across the billionaire's face. Amusement, maybe pity, then vanished. "Tell you what," he said, loud enough for the valet filming on his phone across the street to hear. "That Chiron back there? Limited edition. 1 of 12. I'll let you take it for a drive. 1 lap around the block. If you can get it back here without scratching it." He paused, savoring the moment the way some men savor expensive scotch. "It's yours. Free and clear. Think of it as charity with a challenge." The valet laughed. A passing influencer already had her phone up, live streaming. Hashtag Poor Mom vs. Bugatti was trending before Elena even unbuckled her seatbelt. She should have ignored him. Should have called AAA and waited 4 hours in the rain. Instead, she looked at Mateo, his 2 small sneakers with a hole in the toe, the way he hadn't complained once even though they had eaten nothing but peanut butter sandwiches for 3 days, and something ancient and furious ignited behind her ribs. "Keys," she said. Victor dangled them like bait. "You sure, sweetheart? That's $8 million of precision engineering. More horsepower than your entire life." Elena stepped out into the rain. It soaked her faded diner uniform in seconds, plastering dark hair to her cheeks. She was 5'3" in sneakers and looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in years. But when she took the keys, her hand didn't shake. Victor leaned close enough that only she could hear. "Try not to stall it in first gear. That would be embarrassing." The Chiron's door rose like it was greeting royalty. Inside smelled of new leather and money. The seat adjusted itself around her like it had been waiting for her all along. Mateo watched from the Honda, mouth open. Elena rested her palms on the carbon fiber wheel. For 1 heartbeat, the weight of every double shift, every eviction notice, every time she told her son, maybe next year, pressed down on her. Then she pressed the start button. The engine didn't roar. It detonated. 1,200 horses thundered awake beneath her, vibrating through bone and blood. The dashboard lit up like the cockpit of a fighter jet. She shifted into first, smooth, perfect, the way her father had taught her on back roads in Cuba before everything went wrong, and eased onto Ocean Boulevard. Victor's smirk faltered for half a second when she didn't stall. The first corner came fast. She braked late, turned in, felt the rear tires kiss the edge of traction, and then bite. The Chiron obeyed like it had been born for her hands. Cameras flashed. Phones rose like periscopes. Somewhere, Victor Langford was realizing the punchline might not be hers after all. She took the second corner faster. By the time she hit the straight stretch along the beach, the speedometer was climbing past numbers she'd never whispered in her wildest dreams. Salt wind screamed through the open roof. For the first time in 8 years, Elena Ramirez laughed, raw, reckless, unstoppable. She completed the lap in 47 seconds. When she rolled back to the dealership gates, the Chiron purring like a satisfied panther. The crowd that had gathered was silent. Victor stood exactly where she left him, arms folded, face unreadable. Elena killed the engine, stepped out, and let the door ascend with royal slowness. Mateo came running, barefoot in the puddles, and threw his arms around her waist. Victor cleared his throat. "Well," he said, forcing that razor smile back into place. "A deal's a deal." He tossed her the key fob. She caught it one-handed. Then he added, almost gently, "But you should know, every one of those cars has a tracker, and I'm very good at changing my mind." The smile never left his face, but his eyes were cold as the Atlantic in January. Elena looked down at the fob in her palm, then at her son clinging to her soaked uniform, then at the crowd still filming, waiting for the poor single mom to either cry or kneel in gratitude. She slipped the fob into her pocket and smiled right back. "See you in court, Mr. Langford," she said. Then she walked back to her dead Honda, started it with the spare key she kept taped on the chassis, because poor people learn tricks the rich never need, and drove away with $8 million humming quietly in her pocket, and a war just beginning. The Honda coughed itself back to life, like it had been holding its breath for permission. Elena eased into the flow of traffic, the Bugatti key fob burning a hole against her thigh. Mateo twisted in his booster seat, staring at the little winged emblem on the fob she'd set on the dash like a trophy. "Mommy, are we really keeping it?" he whispered, as if saying it too loud might make it vanish. "We're keeping something," she answered, eyes on the road. "Just not sure what yet." Behind them, the dealership lights faded into the wet night. She took the surface streets, avoiding the toll cameras on the highway. $8 million on wheels was now a moving target, and Victor Langford didn't lose gracefully. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. Unknown number. She let it ring out. 30 seconds later it buzzed again. Same number. On the third try she answered on speaker, keeping both hands on the wheel. "Congratulations, Miss Ramirez." Victor's voice purred, silk over broken glass. "You just became the most famous single mother in America. Hope the attention is worth it." "I didn't do it for likes," she said. "No, you did it because you thought you could humiliate me." A soft laugh. "But here's the thing nobody tells pretty girls with sad stories. Words are free. Ownership is not. That car is registered to a shell company in the Caymans. One phone call, and the title reverts to me. One push of a button, and the engine locks forever. You're holding a very expensive paperweight." Mateo's eyes went wide. Elena reached over and squeezed his knee. "Then why haven't you done it already?" she asked. Silence stretched across the line. Then, "Because I'm curious. Drive to the address I just sent you. Alone. We'll talk terms. Bring the boy, and I call the police for grand theft auto." The text pinged. A pin dropped on a private marina in Coconut Grove. Elena ended the call without answering. She pulled into a Shell station glowing under orange lights, killed the engine, and stared at the key fob. $8 million. One push of a button, and it was scrap metal. One signature, and it was hers. One wrong move, and she was in handcuffs with Mateo in foster care. She looked at her son. "You trust me?" He nodded without hesitation. "Good. We're going to see a friend." 20 minutes later, she parked outside a squat concrete building in Little Havana that smelled of motor oil and cafecito. The roll-up door was half open. Inside, under fluorescent lights, a woman in grease-stained overalls was welding sparks off a 1970 Plymouth Barracuda. She killed the torch when she saw Elena and lifted the mask. "Elena Maria Ramirez," the woman said, grinning with a gold canine. "You only come see me when you're about to do something gloriously stupid." "Carla," Elena said, hugging her hard, "I need a favor that could get you disbarred, deported, and excommunicated all at once." Carla glanced at the key fob. "That the Bugatti everybody's screaming about on TikTok? Ay, Dios mio." She whistled low. "You stole from Victor Langford? Girl, you got bigger cojones than half the mechanics in Miami." "I didn't steal. I won. He just hasn't admitted it yet." Carla wiped her hands on a rag. "Let me guess. Tracker. Kill switch. Offshore title. All of the above." Carla's eyes sparkled. "Give me 30 minutes and $10,000 I know you don't have. I have something better." Elena reached into the glove box and pulled out a flash drive in a plastic bag. Victor's offshore accounts. Every shell, every wire, every politician he bought in the last 5 years. My cousin at the Port Authority owed me a favor. Carla took the drive like it was nitroglycerin. Mutual assured destruction. I like the way you think when you're desperate. While Carla disappeared into her office, Elena sat Mateo on a stack of tires and bought him a Coke from the machine with her last $5. He sipped it quietly, watching sparks fly as Carla's nephew crawled under a lifted truck. 43 minutes later, Carla came back with a new key fob, matte black, no wings, no logo, and a thick manila envelope. "Tracker's dead," she said. "Kill switch bypassed. New VIN etched into the frame. Title's clean. Registered to an LLC in your abuela's maiden name. Untraceable for at least 6 months. After that," she shrugged, "run fast." Elena took the envelope. Inside, the pink slip, a burner phone, and a single brass key on a red string. "What's this?" she asked. "Insurance," Carla said. "Storage unit in Hialeah. Inside is something Victor wants back very badly. Something he can't report stolen. You keep the car. He keeps his mouth shut. You sell the car. I mail him photos. Balance of terror, mi amor." Elena hugged her again, longer this time. "I owe you my life. You owe me a bottle of Don Q and godmother rights if you ever get married again. Now go. Langford's people are already pinging cell towers." They left the Honda in Carla's lot, payment for services rendered, and rolled out in a borrowed Corolla with tinted windows. Elena kept the Bugatti fob in the envelope, tucked under the spare tire. She wasn't stupid enough to drive the car yet. At 3:17 a.m., she pulled into the 24-hour Walmart on 8th Street, parked far from the cameras, and opened the burner phone, one number pre-programmed. She pressed call. Victor answered on the first ring. "Enjoying your little joyride?" he asked. "I'm enjoying the leverage," she said. "Here's how this works. You sign the title over to me. Clean, no liens, no trackers. You forget I exist. In return, certain files stay buried and certain photos never reach your wife's inbox." Silence. Then a soft exhale that might have been laughter or rage. "You think you can threaten me?" he asked quietly. "I know I can, because right now the internet thinks you're a generous saint who gifted a car to a struggling mom. One word from me, and they see the real story. The offshore accounts. The 16-year-old model in Bali. The senator you paid to kill the emissions bill. You'll be canceled before breakfast." Another silence. Longer. "You're not as fragile as you look," he said finally. "Single mothers rarely are." A pause. Keys clicking on his end. "Done," he said. "Title transferred. You'll have the documents by courier in the morning. Drive your new car in good health, Miss Ramirez." He hung up. Elena stared at the phone until the screen went dark. Then she started to shake, not from fear, but from the sudden, dizzying realization that the war might actually be over. Mateo was asleep against her shoulder, Coke tipped in his lap. She kissed the top of his head, tasting rain and grease and possibility. At dawn, she drove to the storage unit in Hialeah. Inside, under a tarp, sat the real prize, a matte black 2023 Bugatti Chiron Supersport, 101, painted in a color Victor had commissioned and then hidden from the world because his wife hated it. The VIN matched the paperwork Carla had forged. The tank was full. Elena ran her fingers over the hood and felt something shift inside her chest, like a fist finally unclenching after 8 long years. She loaded Mateo into the passenger seat, buckled him in, and started the engine. It woke with a whisper that turned into a roar when she touched the throttle. For the first time in forever, Elena Ramirez had nowhere she had to be and everywhere she could go. She pointed the car east, toward the rising sun, and pressed the accelerator. The Chiron leapt forward like it had been waiting its whole life for her foot. 6 months later, the video dropped without warning. No teaser. No countdown. Just a black screen and white text that read, 6 months ago, a billionaire told a single mom, "Drive this car and it will be yours." This is what happened next. Then the screen exploded into motion. It opened with drone footage at sunrise. A lone matte black Chiron, gliding along the empty ribbon of Highway 1, where the Everglades meet the sea, the sky bleeding gold and violet behind it. The camera swooped low, caught the reflection of the sky and the carbon fiber, then cut inside the cockpit. Elena Ramirez, no longer in a diner uniform, hair wild from the wind, eyes bright with something that looked dangerously like peace, glanced at the lens and smiled the smallest, fiercest smile the internet had ever seen. "People keep asking me," she said, voice calm over the turbine whine of the engine, "if I feel guilty for taking $8 million from a man who has 100 times that. The answer is no. I didn't take anything that wasn't freely offered on camera in front of 50 million witnesses. I just refused to let him break the rules after he lost." Cut to a montage that broke the internet all over again. Elena and Mateo walking into the best private school in Coral Gables. Mateo in a brand new uniform 2 sizes too big because he insisted on growing into it. Elena handing the keys of a fully restored 1969 Mustang to Carla at the shop. The 2 women embracing while mechanics cheered. Elena on the stage of a TEDx talk in a simple black dress. 20,000 people on their feet before she even opened her mouth. Elena quietly paying off the mortgages of every single mom who ever worked a graveyard shift with her at the diner. No announcement, no cameras. Just envelopes slid under doors at 3 a.m. Then the tone shifted. Slow motion footage of Victor Langford's fall played like a true crime documentary. Boardroom doors closing in his face. His wife's moving trucks at dawn. The SEC raid on his waterfront mansion. His own viral apology video. Scripted, tearless, posted only after the Cayman's accounts were frozen. Over it all, Elena's voice steady and merciless. He thought shame was a weapon that only worked downward. He was wrong. The final act began with single shot. Elena pulling the Chiron into an empty warehouse lit only by a shaft of sunlight. She stepped out, heels clicking on concrete, and faced a table where 3 people waited. An elderly Cuban mechanic with oil under his nails, a teenage girl in a hijab holding a laptop, and a woman in a power suit who looked like she ate hostile takeovers for breakfast. The camera circled them slowly. Victor Langford bet 1 car against my dignity. Elena said, "I raise him the future." She tossed the original wing key fob onto the table. It spun, flash stopped. That car paid for all of this. The screen filled with a name glowing in electric blue. Ramirez Foundation, a fund that buys supercars from arrogant billionaires, auctions them to their own peers, and turns every dollar into scholarships, workshops, and seed money for single parents who want to start businesses instead of second jobs. The first auction had already raised $43 million. The elderly mechanic picked up the fob and grinned. We call the program Drive It Like You Own It, because now they do. Cut to present day. Elena stood on the balcony of a modest house on Key Biscayne. Nothing ostentatious. Just enough ocean view to remind her every morning that storms pass. Mateo, now 9, ran past her chasing a puppy that cost less than one of Victor's cufflinks. She wore jeans and the same gold hoop earrings she'd had since high school. The only new thing was the quiet. The camera zoomed out slowly until the Chiron came into frame, parked in the driveway like it belonged to the suburbs all along. Matte black paint catching the sunset. No longer a trophy, just transportation. Elena leaned on the railing and spoke directly to the lens one last time. They want the fairy tale where the princess kisses a frog and lives happily ever after in the castle. But some of us don't want the castle. Some of us just want the drawbridge torn down so nobody ever has to beg to cross the moat again. She smiled, not the fierce one, not the broken one, just a calm, unshakable smile of a woman who discovered that the thing she needed most was never the car. It was a refusal to get out of the driver's seat. The screen faded to black. Then, in simple white text, in the last 6 months, the Ramirez Foundation has helped 4,317 single parents start businesses. Every auction car comes with the same rule written on the dash plaque. Drive this car like it was never a gift. Drive it like you earned it, because you will. Last line, centered, pulsing like a heartbeat. The road is long, the tank is full, and the keys are in the hands of the people who were never supposed to have them. Fade to the sound of the Chiron accelerating into the night. Engine note rising like a war cry and a lullaby all at once. Roll credits over slow-motion footage of mothers in caps and gowns, of fathers welding their first custom exhausts, of kids riding the passenger seats of cars their parents now own free and clear. And somewhere in a house that suddenly feels too large and too empty, Victor Langford watches the video on a loop, glass of scotch untouched, staring at the space on his driveway where a certain matte black ghost used to live. He reaches for the phone to make another offer, another threat, another anything. Then he sees the final frame frozen on his screen. The dash plaque inside every auction hypercar. The one Elena had engraved herself. She said yes to the drive. She never said yes to the cage. He sets the phone down. He never calls. Because some games, once you lose them, are over forever. And out there, under an endless ribbon of stars, 1,000 new engines are waking up in the hands of people who were told they would never be allowed to touch the wheel. They touch it anyway. They press the throttle. And the world, for the first time in a long time, moves forward at their speed.